Hiya. Okay, so I've never really planned to do anything like this, so you'll have to forgive me if I'm not my usual self in this video. But I need to make a video. I need to make something clear. The best way that I can do it is, to put a video out there and to start a discussion, which is something that I'm really passionate about. I'm making this video to discuss dual identities in academia and the narratives around being a survivor or a victim of sexual violence, and also working in sexual violence or working in academia. So in my case, in forensic psychology. And I'll get to why I'm doing that in a moment, but there are some important points that need to be made immediately, and I feel like we're not talking openly about the fact that statistically quite a lot of people working in sexual violence and working in psychology, in counselling and psychotherapy have probably got trauma histories and have probably experienced things themselves. What I'm really interested in at the moment is the way that can either be used for you as a benefit, or it can be used against you, depending on how you're perceived and what people want that to mean. So the fact that you've experienced sexual violence can either be used as like a yay, you overcome adversity, isn't that brilliant? Or it can be you're broken and you shouldn't be doing this job, and why are you talking about this anyway? So that's what this video is about, and I think we need to open the discussion. In the British Psychological Society's monthly magazine, there was at one point quite a fierce debate about psychologists even disclosing the fact that they actually have mental health issues themselves and that they experience trauma responses, or they've had adverse histories. And it was quite it was quite fierce. It was sort of like a side that was saying, why are we not talking about this? Why are we not talking about vicarious trauma? Why are we not talking about the impact of our jobs as psychologists? Why are we expected to be these sort of specimen humans that are perfect and elite and hygienic, that don't have any issues because we're the ones in authority? Why have we been given this role? And then other people saying, no, we shouldn't really be talking about our own issues. We should focus on being those academics and those professionals in practice. So this is related to that, I guess. So, there is a lot of research actually that's been done in social work. I don't know whether it's been done in psychology because I've not checked for once. But in social work, and when I wrote the CSE evidence review, I made sure there was a section in there about the impact on social workers who work in sexual violence but have also experienced abuse and traumas themselves. And there was a piece of research done in 2016 that found that 51% of the social work workforce have experienced abuse and traumas themselves. It's probably not going to be that different for psychology, counselling, psychotherapy and the field of sexual violence. It may even be higher. So there are a lot of people that this video is relevant to. The first point that I want to make is that people are more than a sum of their parts. We have multiple intersecting identities at all times. You can't tell us to cut one of those off. So if you are a psychologist or a psychotherapist or an academic or researcher in this field of sexual violence and abuse and trauma, you're not just that. You can't possibly just be that. You may have grown up in poverty, you may have experienced your own traumas, you may also be a parent, your children may have been abused, your parents may have been abused, you may have witnessed domestic violence as a child. The chances of all of those things are extremely high. We know what the statistics are, and I don't understand why us as professionals and academics are supposed to pretend that none of that has happened to any of us and that we're all clean, that we're all perfect, that we're unaffected by the things that are affecting the rest of society because we're the professionals. I don't understand why we're supposed to cut off parts of our identity. And this is something that has come up quite a lot for me recently. And I struggle with the fact that I never really know what I'm supposed to say. I'm going to be completely honest and vulnerable with you. What am I supposed to say? Am I supposed to make out that I'm this like successful writer and researcher and speaker, and that I just got here by chance? Is that what I'm supposed to do? I'm supposed to just say I got here through hard work? Is that it? Is that the answer? Or am I allowed to say, well, actually, this is what happened. This is why I'm here. This is why I fight so hard against victim blaming. And the fact of the matter is, I have been directly told not to talk about it. Don't talk about your history, don't talk about the things that have happened to you, don't talk about the fact that you had a baby when you were a kid, don't talk about those things because, you know, you're a professional now. And I started to really resent that and thought, why am I being boxed in? And then I thought, I can't be the only person being boxed in. And loads of professionals write to me and people ring me and Skype me and talk about things like this. And I know it's not just me that it's happening to, but I need to understand why. Because right now I don't understand why. Why are we supposed to just have this one identity if we work in this field? Why can't we accept all of our different intersecting identities? The second point that I want to make about this, about having experienced your own traumas and things, is that in psychology especially, I'm constantly hearing this word objectivity banged around. Oh, you have to remain objective, you have to be objective. Make sure your research is objective. I have news for you. In psychology, objectivity is impossible. Humans are not objective. It doesn't matter if you think you're objective. In fact, actually, I think if you're one of those people that claims that you're completely objective in your research, it's you with the problem. Because nobody is objective. When you write a document, you're not objective. When you get commissioned to write something, you're not objective. When you write your own blogs, you're not objective. When you come to conclusions in your research, you are not objective. You are the product of all of your years of socialisation, of your experiences and of your own identities. And what I'm concerned about is that especially people who have experienced their own traumas and their own abuse and things like that are sort of being pushed to say, you know, are you objective enough to be doing this research? Can you really do this job? Can you remain objective? Fuck you. Like, are you objective? Is anybody objective? And I think it's becoming a bit of a myth that, you know, that psychologists and academics are able to just completely remove themselves from a social issue and just look at the data and look at that piece of research and be like, yeah, I don't have any opinions. I have no predisposed ideas about this. I'm not affected by socialisation. I'm an objective researcher. That's impossible. And I'm worried about how that argument is being levelled against survivors and victims of sexual violence that are in this field, you know, or mental health as well. Like, you know, if someone's experienced mental health issues and then they go and work in clinical psychology or they go and work in mental health, you know, are you able to be objective? I don't know anybody who is objective. I don't know the answer to that. The third point that I want to make is that I feel like we've got this really strange dichotomy going on in sexual abuse and sexual violence and then in psychology and academia. That having a trauma history is a bad thing. But then we're all working with victims and claiming that we can help them like rebuild and work, you know, and work towards really healthy and happy futures. But then on the other hand, we're being like, oh, well, you know, if you've got a trauma history, then these things will probably happen to you again and you're vulnerable now. So which is it? You know? Like, which one are we going to go with? Do we actually believe that we can help people recover and rebuild and that they can go on to live happy and full lives? Or do we believe that they're just damaged for the rest of their lives and that everything they do is defunct because they were raped or they were abused as a child or they witnessed domestic violence or they had mental health issues? Like, what is it? Which argument are you going with? Because you've got to have one. You can't sit and play like mental gymnastics and do both of those things. You believe one or you believe the other. And I'm worried about the fact that we talk about trauma histories as a vulnerability, like an innate vulnerability, that once that person has had that crime committed against them, they have some sort of innate vulnerability that means that they shouldn't be doing certain things, they're not capable of certain things, their relationships will be affected, the way they process information will be affected. And, you know, we don't talk about trauma histories and adversity and resilience, making us better or making us greater or making us more skilled or making us more nuanced. We're not talking about that. We're talking about how it gives you barriers and how it would make your job harder or how it would make your life harder. And, you know, if us, the people that are writing all of this shit and putting it out, if even we believe that, what messages are we giving to everybody else if we only ever talk about the fact that you know, if bad stuff has happened to you, or if people chose to harm you, then now, you know, your life is now affected. And I'm not ready to accept that as a dominant narrative. I don't think it's fair, and I think it stinks of victim blaming. It's horrible. The perpetrator gets, you know, the perpetrator gets no stigma, the perpetrator gets no responsibility, the perpetrator is erased completely, and then we all write little journal articles about how vulnerabilities affect people for the rest of their lives, and they go on and do this. And, you know, and that type of research affects the way practitioners work, and it affects the way policy and practice is driven. So, and that sort of made me think, and I was giving a speech at Drop the Disorder about, I think it was about a week and a half ago now, and one of my slides was talking about the perfect survivor, the perfect trauma survivor. And it's impossible. There's no such thing. You can try, but you'll never achieve it. So, you know, no matter what, you know, you will always be criticised. If somebody finds out that you have a trauma history, you will be criticised. They'll find a way. And I gave some examples during the speech. So one of them was like, you know, do you talk about it too much, or do you just not talk about it at all? I mean, how much should you talk about it? How much is too much? What happens when you don't talk about it? Does that mean you're repressing it? You know, you're not sure she's not ready to talk about it. That's a problem. She talks about it all the time. That's also a problem. Like, what are we aiming for? You know, like a certain amount of minutes a day, or, you know, once a month? Like, who are we to set whether survivors can talk and when they can talk about what it was that was done to them? And then who are we to then claim that whether that means they've recovered or not? And it's like accessing therapy versus not accessing therapy. If they access therapy, then there's an assumption there's something wrong with them. If they don't access therapy after trauma, there's an assumption there's something wrong with them. Like, how do they win? If they access therapy, there's the stigma of people being like, did you know that they're accessing counselling? And if they don't, it's like, do you know they've never had any counselling? What? Like, how do you win? You know, do they seek help? Do they not seek help? Why are they seeking help? I think it's because they're still traumatised. Why are they not seeking help? I think it's because they're too traumatised to seek help. It doesn't matter what you do, it'll never be right, because actually this is about victim stigma. It's about the fact that you are the victim of traumas, or you've experienced or witnessed something. And things like, do you talk about it in your professional life, or do you not talk about it in your professional life? If you talk about it in your professional life, why? Why can't you just be a professional? Why do you need to talk about the things that have happened to you? If you don't talk about it in your professional life, people are thinking, are they ashamed of it? Like, why do they never talk about their roots? Why do they never talk about where they come from? Have they forgotten who they are? You know, are they embarrassed? Are they scared? You know, all that sort of stuff. So it doesn't really matter what you do or how you approach your recovery. It'll never be right. And so that was what I was talking about in the speech at Drop the Disorder, because it's the same with mental health. And so, you know, I said in the speech that you can refuse medication and treatment. So when people say, oh, I think there's this wrong with you, and you have this disorder after the abuse, and I think you need this medication and that will make you better. And if you accept it, there's something wrong with you. And if you don't accept it, there's something wrong with you. So if you argue and go, no, there isn't, I'm not accepting that label and I'm not interested in medication, actually I want to work through what happened, then you're refusing the label and you're in denial and all this sort of mumbo jumbo. But if you accept it, you're then treated like you've got some sort of disorder and there's something wrong with you because somebody else committed a crime against you. So, you know, these are the things that I think we need to start discussing and debating, because I feel like we're going around in circles in this field, and I feel like the narratives about survivor and victimhood are so mixed up now. I don't know where we are. I don't know, you know, I know where I am. I don't know where the rest of the field is. So why am I telling you all of this? Well, because, and I shall show you, in this envelope, I have over 110 pages of emails that were sent about me that I got in a subject data access request, because I know my rights and I understand the Data Protection Act, unlike the people in these emails, who are not very happy about the CSE Films campaign, and they're not very happy about the fact that I talk openly on social media. They're not very happy about the fact that I started the hashtag Council Estate Professionals to celebrate the fact that some of us don't come from the elite middle class. And, you know, there's lots of things that certain people are not very happy about. And their way of dealing with that, despite the fact that they work actively in sexual violence and in psychology, was to send hundreds of emails over a period of months claiming that I am mentally ill and that I am emotionally and mentally unstable, that I'm in need of mental health treatment, all on the basis that they read an interview that I gave around 2 years ago to Dr. Shruti Kapoor about my experiences of sexual violence as a kid, and going on and having a baby when I was a child and things like that, which I was invited to do as somebody that's in the public eye, as someone who's a speaker, as someone who has worked through so much and then, you know, gone on to help other people. I was invited to do that interview, and it's now being used against me to claim that I am too dangerous to do my job, that I should have my licenses removed, and that I'm too traumatised, and a load of other shit, really. And unfortunately for those people, because they tried very hard to make sure that I never saw those things, those emails that they'd written, I now know who it is, and I'm really upset about it, not on the basis that it was done to me, but on the basis of who those people are, because those people work with victims, those people work in sexual violence and work in psychology, and, you know, have a decent career and a decent life, and have used all of these really stigmatising narratives about victimhood to try and discredit everything that I'm doing because they don't like the No More CSE Films campaign. So rather than actually talking to me and doing anything above board, instead what's happened is that there's essentially just been this huge campaign of trying to discredit me and make me out to be, you know, some sort of really unstable, you know, working class mess that can't do my job. And, you know, reading the emails was a bit of a surprise. Some of the language that was used was really inappropriate. The fact that the people who have written these emails have never actually met me and don't know anything about me. They've actually based it on an interview, like one interview that I think is about 800 words long, and on Twitter. And they've distance diagnosed me with mental health issues, and then claim that I shouldn't be doing particular projects because I have a history of child abuse. So I am raising this because if someone like me, who is established and has a business and knows where I'm going and knows what I'm doing and is making a difference and has the strength and has the resources to deal with this, you know, how are people who are not at this place in their life going to deal with that level of stigma from professionals that are in our field? These are people that are in our field that you do know, that you have potentially worked with, who have taken it upon themselves to discredit somebody by claiming that because they'd experienced sexual violence they're too mentally ill to do their job, despite the fact that they've never spoken to me and I actually didn't know who they were. I had to Google their names. So what I'm here to say is that we can't, academia, psychology, sexual violence, this field that we are in, where I thought we were trying to help victims. I thought that was the point. Isn't that why we're all here? We can't remain this elite and this hygienic where we're not talking about anything about ourselves. We're going out there and professing that we know, you know, everything, and we know the answers to this, and we have the toolkits, and we have the resources, and we have all the answers, and we write all the research. But we don't speak out, do we? We don't get involved in activism. And actually the fact that I am involved in activism and that I do a lot of challenging pieces of work, critical pieces of work, and activist type pieces of work is actually seen in these emails and is written in these emails as a problem. that I shouldn't be doing that as an academic, that I shouldn't be speaking out, that we shouldn't be trying to make change, we shouldn't be challenging authorities, that we should be doing it behind the scenes so that people don't know, to maintain the establishment. And that is not what we should be doing. All we are doing by creating this hygienic, clean field of professionals and academics in sexual violence and pretending that we are above, we are better than, we don't experience mental health issues, we don't experience abuse, nothing has ever happened to us. It's bullshit. I know loads of people in this field that are here for a reason, but then it's not safe enough for them to speak out. How are we supposed to be putting up campaigns on Twitter and putting stuff on our websites and giving speeches about Me Too and speaking out and helping victims disclose if the people in our field can't even talk about their own lives without stigma and without, you know, the impact on them as a professional being seen as less professional, less skilled, more dangerous, can't do their job, shouldn't be allowed to get involved in this project and all that sort of thing. These are not compatible views. I don't understand how people can work in sexual violence and claim to be working with victims and claim to be understanding of psychology, social and forensic and things like that, and then do something like that. That makes no sense to me. And I'm not scared of speaking out. And the people writing those emails should have known that. I'm not the type of person that's gonna just let this go. Like, that's not okay. You can have a problem with, I say this to people all the time, you can disagree with the things I say. I understand that the things I say are very different and that they're radical. I get that. I know that. I'm not daft. When I write them, I'm not thinking, everyone's going to agree with this. Like I used to, but I've learned now. But that, you know, like a real concerted effort to try and paint me as like really fucking dangerous and mentally ill and in need of mental health treatment because they found out on the internet that, you know, stuff had happened to me as a kid. That's discrimination. That's against the law, actually. Not only that, but where does it leave us as a field if that's what we're... Is that how dog eat dog academia is? Really? Is that what we want to tell our students and our undergraduates and our master's students that are trying to come up? The kids from like the council estate, the kids from poverty, the kids that have come as refugees, the kids that have come via asylum, that are trying to build something in this country. Is that what we're going to tell them? That when you get up here, if they find any of that stuff out about you, you're fucked? Is that it? Is that the message that we're giving? So that's it. I just want to... I've spoken. I've said what what I need to say. It stays out there. We need to talk about the classism. We need to talk about this anti-victim stuff that's going on in our own fields. We need to talk about the dichotomy between how some people speak out and they're celebrated as heroes and other people speak out are seen as mentally ill, dangerous, vulnerable, and things like that. And then we need to talk about the fact that a lot of professionals are too scared to even admit their own histories. How have we created a field like that? How have we created an environment and a culture like that? So thanks for listening. I'm always open to a chat, you know that. Give us an email, Skype meetings, phone call, whatever. And I hope this starts discussion, and you can use a video if you like. Training, universities, police evidence, don't give a shit. You do whatever you want, because we need to start talking about this, and I won't stand for 110 pages of emails trying to do that. Okay.